She was a millionaire CEO who mocked a black mechanic in front of everyone, laughed, even made a bet that she'd marry him if he could fix her broken Lamborghini. But when the engine roared to life and the crowd went silent, that one moment changed both of their lives forever. What started as a joke turned into the most unexpected love story you'll ever hear. It started on the hottest afternoon of the summer. The sun hung mercilessly over downtown Atlanta, turning glass towers into mirrors of heat. The parking lot of Harrington Motors, a luxury car dealership known for serving billionaires and movie stars, shimmered like melted gold. Engines hummed, suits glistened, and everyone stayed clear of the furious woman standing beside a bright yellow Lamborghini Aventador. That woman was Jasmine Harrington, CEO of the multi-million-dollar company and daughter of its founder, known across the city for her beauty, ambition, and razor-sharp tongue. Today, though, even her confidence was cracking. She slammed her car keys on the hood and snapped at her assistants. "Do I seriously pay people 6 figures for this?" she barked. "It's a $400,000 car and none of you can make it move." A few nervous employees glanced at each other, unsure whether to speak or stay silent. Sweat trickled down their foreheads, though none of it came from the heat. Jasmine paced around her car, muttering under her breath. Her heels clicked sharply on the concrete, echoing like warning shots. "Get me someone who can fix this right now," she ordered. "Or you'll all be looking for new jobs by Monday." From a distance, a voice spoke, calm, deep, and steady. "I can take a look, ma'am," heads turned. Standing near the service bay was Malik Carter, a young black mechanic in a faded gray jumpsuit, his hands and face smeared with grease. He wasn't one of the company's star technicians, just a contract worker, hired recently for his skill but often overlooked because of his quiet nature and simple background. Jasmine raised an eyebrow. "You?" "Yes, ma'am," he said, walking closer. "If you give me 10 minutes, I think I can fix it." The executive standing nearby snickered. One whispered, "This guy doesn't even have a degree." But Malik ignored them. His eyes were fixed on the engine, not the people. Jasmine folded her arms, amused. "Sweetheart, this is a V12 engine, not a lawnmower you fix in your backyard." Laughter rippled through the small crowd. One of the sales managers even pulled out his phone, ready to record whatever humiliation came next. But Malik didn't laugh. He just said softly, "Engines don't care who owns them, ma'am. They only care who understands them." The remark silenced a few chuckles. Even Jasmine blinked, momentarily surprised by his confidence. Then, with a half-smile that was more challenge than charm, she leaned on her car and said, "All right, Mr. Genius Mechanic. Tell you what, if you can fix this thing right here, right now, I'll marry you." The words hung in the air like thunder before a storm. The executives gasped. Some burst out laughing. Even Jasmine herself laughed, shaking her head as if she'd made the most ridiculous joke in the world. But Malik didn't laugh. He reached into his tool belt, wiped his hands on a rag, and nodded. "Deal!" The laughter died instantly. "Wait, what?" Jasmine blinked. "You said if I fix it, you'll marry me," Malik repeated calmly. "So let's see what's wrong." Without waiting for permission, he popped open the hood. The scent of burnt oil filled the air. He crouched beside the car, moving with quiet focus as the crowd leaned in, whispering. For the next few minutes, the only sound was the rhythmic clicking of Malik's tools. Jasmine stood silently, her expression caught somewhere between amusement and disbelief. Everyone expected him to fail. After all, 2 certified technicians had already given up earlier that morning. But Malik's hands moved fast and precise, like someone who'd done this 1,000 times before. And then, with one final twist of his wrench, vroom! The engine came to life, roaring like a wild beast. The laughter stopped. Even the birds in the nearby trees seemed to pause. Malik stood up, wiped the sweat from his brow, and closed the hood gently. Then he turned to Jasmine with a faint, confident smile. "Guess you owe me a wedding, ma'am." For a moment, she just stared at him, speechless, red-faced. And unsure whether to be furious or impressed, the crowd didn't dare breathe. And that's how it all began. With one impossible challenge, one quiet mechanic, and one promise no one ever thought would come true. Everyone expected Malik to fail. After all, Jasmine Harrington's Lamborghini had already been inspected by 2 certified technicians, both with expensive degrees, crisp uniforms, and trembling hands. They had declared it dead until replacement parts arrived from Italy. To the executives watching, the idea that this grease-covered mechanic from the South Side could fix it seemed laughable, but Malik didn't care about their opinions. He cared about engines, and this one was talking to him. He popped the hood open. The smell of burnt oil and gasoline filled the hot air. The sound of clicking metal echoed through the lot. The crowd stepped closer, shading their eyes from the sun. Sweat glistened on Malik's forehead, but his hands moved steady, quick, precise, deliberate. His eyes scanned every bolt, every wire, every belt, like a surgeon studying a patient on the table. To everyone else, it looked like chaos. But inside Malik's mind, everything made sense. He remembered the long summers in his grandfather's garage on the South Side, a tiny, dusty workshop where the air smelled of oil and old jazz music. His grandfather used to say, "A real mechanic doesn't fix machines, Malik. He listens to them." And right now, Malik was listening. The engine made a faint ticking sound, deep inside the block. It was subtle, almost hidden. He traced it to a loose ignition coil and a faulty sensor wire that no one else had noticed. He pulled a small pocket tool set from his belt. Not the polished chrome kind, just old worn tools passed down through generations. One wrench had his grandfather's initials carved into it. The executives snickered. One whispered, "He's actually using that?" Another chuckled, "Maybe he'll pray it back to life." Jasmine stood a few feet away, arms crossed, trying to hide her amusement. "This should be good," she murmured. But then her smirk started to fade. Malik wasn't fumbling like she expected. He wasn't panicking under the pressure or glancing nervously at the crowd. He was calm, unnervingly calm. 5 minutes passed. The heat grew heavier. The sound of Malik's wrench echoed off the metal walls of the dealership. His shirt clung to his back, drenched in sweat, but he didn't stop. By the 8th minute, even the laughter had quieted. People began whispering instead, "Wait, he actually knows what he's doing." "I've never seen someone that focused." Jasmine frowned, stepping a little closer. Her eyes followed his every movement. He wasn't just fixing the car, he was fighting for something bigger. Finally, Malik tightened one last bolt, wiped his hands with a rag, and took a slow step back. "All right," he said quietly. "Let's see if she wants to run again." He climbed into the driver's seat, twisted the key, and for a heartbeat there was silence. Then, vroom, the engine exploded to life like thunder rolling across the sky. The roar bounced off the dealership windows, filling the air with raw power. The Lamborghini purred like a lion freed from its cage. The crowd froze. No one spoke. No one laughed. One of the technicians dropped his clipboard. Another whispered, "That's impossible." Malik stepped out, his expression calm, almost casual, as if he'd just done something ordinary. He closed the hood gently and looked straight at Jasmine. Her jaw had dropped. Her once perfect posture wavered. He gave her a small nod and said, "Guess you owe me a wedding, ma'am." For the first time in her life, Jasmine Harrington had no comeback, no sarcastic remark, no icy glare, just silence. And in that silence, something strange flickered in her eyes, a spark of disbelief, and maybe, just maybe, the tiniest hint of respect. The crowd broke into murmurs. Some even clapped quietly, unsure what else to do. Jasmine stood frozen. Her lips parted slightly as if she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Malik didn't wait for applause. He simply grabbed his rag, slung it over his shoulder, and walked back toward the garage, leaving behind the echo of that roaring engine, and a CEO who suddenly realized she might have underestimated more than just a mechanic. Because in that moment, she hadn't just seen a man fix a car, she had seen someone fix her assumptions, piece by piece. That evening, the entire dealership was still buzzing about what had happened. Mechanics whispered about the bet that backfired, and executives kept replaying the video clips someone had secretly recorded on their phones. Within hours, the clip had spread across social media. CEO challenges mechanic, and loses. But in the corner office overlooking the city, Jasmine Harrington wasn't laughing. She sat behind her glass desk, the city lights reflecting in her eyes, thinking about the man who had just turned her afternoon humiliation into the talk of the town. For years, she had built a reputation for being untouchable, confident, calculated, and in control. Yet somehow a mechanic with a calm smile and grease on his hands had made her question herself in front of everyone. Finally, she picked up the intercom. "Send in Malik Carter." Moments later, he walked into her office, still wearing his gray jumpsuit, a faint trace of engine oil on his forearms. "No nervousness, no fear, just quiet respect, ma'am," he said with a nod. "Sit," she replied, motioning to the chair across from her. Her tone was cooler than before, but there was something different in her eyes. Not arrogance, but curiosity. She leaned forward. "Who are you, really?" He raised an eyebrow. "Just someone who loves engines," she smirked slightly. "Come on. You fixed a car my best engineers couldn't. There's more to you than that." Malik shrugged. "Been fixing cars since I was 12. My granddad taught me. Guess I just got used to figuring things out on my own." Jasmine studied him carefully. There was no pride in his voice, no attempt to impress her, just honesty. But what she didn't know was that Malik once studied automotive engineering at a state university. He had been at the top of his class until tragedy struck. When his mother got sick, tuition and hospital bills piled up. So Malik did what he had to, dropped out, took a job at a small garage, and never looked back. He didn't talk about it. He didn't complain. He just worked. After a long silence, Jasmine said softly, "You embarrassed me today." Malik looked up, calm as ever. "Wasn't my goal, ma'am. I just did my job." Something in his tone, that quiet humility, hit her harder than any insult could. For the first time in years, Jasmine didn't feel superior. She felt humbled. That night, long after everyone had gone home, she sat in her penthouse staring out at the city lights, replaying every moment. The way he spoke, the steadiness in his voice, the way he didn't bow to her status or wealth. He didn't just fix her car. He shattered her pride. 2 days later, curiosity won. Jasmine drove across town, far from her luxury office and designer world, until she reached a small corner shop with a flickering sign that read, "Carter's Auto. Honest work. Honest price." She stepped out of her SUV, heels clicking against the cracked pavement. The smell of oil and rubber filled the air. Inside, Malik was bent over a rusted pickup truck, sleeves rolled up, music playing softly on a dusty radio. No suits, no assistants. Just real work. She stood by the doorway, watching. His movements were smooth, efficient, not for show but for purpose. A mother with 2 kids waited nearby. Malik smiled warmly at them and said, "You're all set, ma'am. Don't worry about the bill until next week." The woman thanked him and left, tears in her eyes. Jasmine blinked. She had never seen that kind of generosity in her boardroom. No contracts, no profits, just kindness. When Malik finally noticed her, he didn't seem surprised. He wiped his hands and said, "Didn't think a CEO would visit my side of town." She smiled faintly. "I guess I just wanted to see the man who made me eat my own words." He laughed softly. "That's a rare thing to admit." Jasmine looked around. The peeling paint, the rusty tools, the old photo of a young Malik with his grandfather hanging on the wall. And for the first time, she saw something she'd never seen before in her world of glass towers and board meetings. Real passion. It wasn't about money or reputation. It was about love for the craft. And as she stood there in that tiny garage, surrounded by the smell of oil and the sound of jazz from an old radio, Jasmine Harrington realized something she'd never admitted before. She'd been rich all her life, but she had never truly felt fulfilled. Weeks passed, and rumors spread like wildfire through the marble halls of Harrington Motors. What started as an embarrassing bet had turned into the company's favorite gossip. The CEO who promised marriage to a mechanic. That phrase became a punchline, whispered at coffee stations and corporate dinners. Everywhere Jasmine went, she could feel the smirks, the judgmental looks masked behind polite smiles. Her board members whispered. Her assistants giggled when they thought she wasn't listening. Even clients dropped sly remarks. And outside the office, her so-called friends were even worse. At one of her high society lunches, a friend leaned in with a cruel grin. "Girl, please. You can't be serious about that grease monkey. I mean, come on, what would people think?" The women at the table burst out laughing. Jasmine forced a smile, stirring her drink as if she didn't care. But inside, every word cut deeper than she wanted to admit. That night, she sat alone in her penthouse, a view of Atlanta glittering beneath her, and replayed that moment in her mind. They all mocked Malik, but somehow she couldn't, because Malik had something none of them did: dignity. He didn't chase fame, power, or validation. He didn't even flinch when the world laughed at him. And the more they mocked, the more Jasmine realized something she'd never said out loud. Malik was the only man who'd ever stood up to her without trying to impress her. A few evenings later, rain poured across the city like sheets of glass. The streets were slick and thunder rolled in the distance. Jasmine had just left a disastrous board meeting. Her company had lost a major international deal, costing millions. Investors were furious. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing with messages from angry partners, and then the final blow came through: a short text from her fiancé, a wealthy investor she had been dating for 2 years. "I can't do this anymore, Jasmine. You're too focused on business. You'll never make space for love." Her fingers trembled as she read it. The man she thought would stand by her, the one who loved her success, had just walked out without looking back. By the time her car broke down on the dark highway, she had nothing left to fight with. She sat inside the sleek, silent machine as rain hammered against the windshield, mascara running down her cheeks, her breath fogging the glass. For the first time in years, the powerful CEO of Harrington Motors looked small. She didn't even know who she was calling when she dialed the number, but when Malik's calm voice answered, she broke down completely. "Malik, my car, it just died again. I'm on Route 74, I don't know what to do." He didn't ask questions. He didn't make her wait. Within 20 minutes, headlights appeared through the rain. Malik stepped out of his old pickup, soaked to the bone, and walked toward her car. He didn't comment on her tears. He didn't scold her for calling so late. He just grabbed his tools and went to work, the rain running down his face as lightning flashed behind him. Jasmine watched from the passenger seat. This man, humble and silent, fixing her car while the world seemed to crumble around her. In that moment, she realized how different he was. When she was at her highest, everyone praised her. But now, when she had nothing but heartbreak and failure, Malik came without hesitation. Minutes later, the engine roared back to life. Malik closed the hood, knocked on her window, and said softly, "You're good to go." She stepped out, her designer heels splashing in the puddles. The rain was still falling, but his eyes were warm, steady, grounding. He took off his jacket, draped it over her shoulders, and said gently, "Don't let this break you, Jasmine. You're stronger than that. No jokes, no flirting, no arrogance, just quiet kindness." That simple gesture, that humanity, cracked something inside her walls of pride. As he drove off into the rain, Jasmine stood there clutching his jacket, feeling its warmth and realizing something she had never felt before: respect. That night, for the first time in a long time, Jasmine didn't fall asleep thinking about profits, deals, or competition. She fell asleep thinking about Malik Carter, the man who fixed her car twice, and unknowingly was beginning to fix her heart. Months passed and the world slowly moved on, but Jasmine Harrington hadn't forgotten the man who changed her perspective on everything. After that rainy night, she found herself visiting Malik's small garage more often, sometimes with a broken car, other times just an excuse to talk. At first, Malik thought she was checking on her repairs, but soon he realized she wasn't coming for engines. She was coming for peace. His workshop was nothing like her glass office tower. It smelled of oil, metal, and honest work. The radio played old R&B songs. The guys in the back laughed while fixing tires. And Malik, always focused, always calm, treated everyone the same. He never brought up the bet. He never asked for attention. That humility was exactly what Jasmine needed. One afternoon, as she watched him guide a young apprentice, teaching with patience and pride, something clicked inside her. This man didn't just repair machines, he rebuilt people. And she wanted to be part of that. A few months later, Jasmine made a shocking announcement. She sold her entire luxury car collection, the Ferraris, the Lamborghinis, the Rolls-Royce, everything that once defined her status. The media went wild. What happened to the glamorous CEO? Why is Jasmine Harrington selling her cars? At the next company board meeting, she stood at the head of the table, calm but firm. "I'm investing in Carter Motors," she declared. "We're building something new, something that values skill and heart more than branding." The room fell silent. Her shareholders looked stunned. Some thought she'd lost her mind, but Jasmine didn't care anymore about impressing the rich. She wanted to empower the real. The day of the launch event arrived. Reporters, photographers, and curious employees filled the old warehouse that Malik once called his garage. It had been renovated, not into a luxury showroom, but into a place where innovation met humility. A new sign hung proudly above the doors. Carter and Harrington Motors. When Jasmine stepped up to the stage in her simple white blouse and jeans, no designer gown, no diamond jewelry, the cameras clicked in surprise. A reporter chuckled from the front row. "So, Miss Harrington," he teased, "are you still keeping your promise? The one about marrying the mechanic?" The crowd laughed lightly. Jasmine paused, then smiled. "He fixed more than my engine," she said softly. "He fixed my heart." The laughter that followed wasn't mocking this time. It was warm, genuine. People saw something real between them, something that didn't need to be explained. As the applause faded, Malik walked up to the stage. He hadn't changed much. Still in his dark work shirt, sleeves rolled up, a quiet confidence in his eyes. He looked at her with that familiar smirk. "You sure about this, Miss CEO?" She grinned back. "You earned it, Mr. Mechanic," and before the cameras, the reporters, and all those who once doubted them, Jasmine stepped forward and kissed him. Not as a publicity stunt, not as a bet, but as a woman who had finally found something real. The audience erupted in cheers. Even the journalists who once mocked them found themselves smiling, clapping, touched by a story that was more than love. It was redemption, respect, and rebirth. Epilogue. A year later, the garage had transformed into a buzzing auto innovation center. The faded walls now bore a proud sign: Carter and Harrington Motors, built with skill, driven by respect. They employed dozens of young mechanics, many from low-income neighborhoods. Given a second chance, just like Malik once had, Jasmine handled the business side. Malik led the workshop. Different worlds, perfectly balanced. Sometimes new employees would ask about the name. "What's the story behind Carter and Harrington?" Malik would just chuckle, wiping grease from his hands. "Let's just say..." He'd grin, eyes twinkling. Never underestimate a mechanic with a promise to keep. And in the corner office, once Jasmine's place of power, now shared, hung a small framed photo. The day they first met in that broken-down car on the highway. It was a reminder that sometimes the most beautiful stories don't start with perfection. They start with a little dirt, a lot of heart, and a spark that refuses to die.